With news today, the White House Chief of Staff learned about the IRS scandal after the auditing stopped, but reportedly did not tell the president. We turn to a Republican Congressman, Kevin Yoder, who has been demanding accountability and is also calling for an overhaul of the IRS. He's joined me right now. Congressman, good to have you on the program. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Maria.
So what is your reaction to the news today that the White House Chief of Staff knew about the IRS report before it was released, but that the administration says the president was not informed? Is that typical that the Chief of Staff would not tell the president?
Every day we learn something new in Washington, D.C., a new revelation about who knew what and when they knew it. So it's not really surprising. It's what a lot of us suspected. You know, we think the administration knew about these special audits going on against conservative groups for a long time, and they chose willful ignorance, I think, on behalf of the president. I mean, the president has the ability to sidestep this and say, look, this was my administration. I had nothing to do with this. And so it doesn't really shock us that upper administrative officials knew about this, and that's part of the reason why we need a full investigation, Maria. We need to know who knew what, when they knew it, and what they did about it. At this point, a lot of the details are still hazy, and every day the story out of the administration changes. And this is one of those cases where I think Capitol Hill is still stunned to learn that the IRS actually targeted individual Americans or groups of Americans based upon their ideology and harassed them with audits and additional requests for paperwork. And it really strikes the heart of our freedom and democracy in this country. So it's really one of those issues that both Republicans and Democrats are concerned about, and we've got to get to the bottom of.
Well, I mean, the president, I believe, has said we're not going to have an independent outside counsel. You think that that will, in fact, materialize?
I think we'll get there. I think that the Department of Justice can't be the ones investigating this issue because we have too many folks that are too close to this to be able to be fair and impartial. We need independent investigation here because we have some real challenges with getting answers out of this administration. Americans are rightfully angered about this, and they're expecting Congress and they're expecting the federal government to fully investigate this, get to the bottom of it, hold individuals accountable, both civilly and criminally, and to make sure this never happens again.
Well, let me ask you this. About a year ago, then IRS Commissioner Doug Shulman appeared before your House Appropriations Subcommittee. You asked him about similar allegations. What did he tell you then?
Well, we asked him directly, are you targeting, or is the IRS targeting conservative groups? Are they targeting any groups based upon political ideology? He told me then in the committee then it wasn't happening. In fact, it couldn't happen because, and he invoked Nixon. He said after Nixon, we placed safeguards in place so that this never could happen again. And so I can assure you it's not happening. And so we've got to know when Commissioner Shulman actually knew what was going on there, because now we're finding out that shortly after he testified before my committee, he knew. Did he know beforehand? We now know he knew afterwards, and he didn't come back and correct the record. And that's one of the challenges we have, not only the incident itself, but why didn't anyone ever come before Congress and when they testified actually corrected the record? So we feel very misled on this because we were asking direct questions, Maria. Is this happening? And they were telling us all along, no, 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 it can't happen, and it wouldn't happen. It's not possible. Now we know that it was, and we know that officials within the IRS knew about it, including folks in Washington. You know, at first they said, Maria, it's just a few folks in Cincinnati. We didn't know anything about it. Then later they said, well, okay, the commissioner knew about it. The acting commissioner Miller knew about it. Now they're saying, look, folks in the White House knew the investigation was going on, yet nobody said anything. Nobody took any efforts to stop it. And Maria, up until last week, this was probably still going on. There are still groups that still have yet to hear back from the IRS 3 years after the fact. So we've got a lot of work to do to find out what really happened here.
You're co-sponsoring a bill to extend privacy protections for electronic communications, that third-party service provider store.
Right.
You say this idea was spurned by IRS officials?
Yeah, the IRS, you know, not surprisingly, I guess, in recent months, before this whole recent controversy, but prior to that, came out and announced that they had actually been reading emails of Americans without a warrant. And they justify this through a 1986 act that allows them to review emails without a warrant on the individual who has the emails, review them as long as they are 180 days old or they are opened. And so they have admitted, yes, we are reading the emails of Americans without warrants as long as they are open, and we can do that under federal law. And when pressed on this, their response was, well, Americans do not have an expectation of privacy within their emails. We just think this is absolutely wrong. We think the Fourth Amendment ought to apply to emails just like they apply to paper mail and any other documents that we contain. The federal government doesn't have the right to seize or search those emails without due cause, probable cause that's signed off on by a judge. They need a warrant. And so the Email Privacy Act comes in and essentially requires the IRS and other federal agencies to have a warrant to ensure that the emails we send in this country are protected and safe and not being read by the federal government.
All right, Congressman, good to have you on the program. Thanks for weighing in, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Maria.
Representative Kevin